and we'll see what happens. Okay, we have the English opening, and right now they're playing symmetrically. So one thing about symmetrical openings, there comes a time when you cannot copy your opponent. Okay, now both sides have a D4 or a D5 push available. We could transpose into that, and now the normal move would be knight C6. I'm sorry, knight C3. And if knight C6, then we're going to play D4. Now, sometimes we can reach this position through a different move order, and one difference: this knight is already on C6, and black has foregone castling, and black will play D5. So here, let's see what black does. He plays knight C6. So the main line now is to play D4. Very good. Okay, so this is what's called the symmetrical English, and it's something I'm very, very familiar with from both sides of the board. So black's main line is to play pawn takes, and now knight takes. Now there are several interesting choices here. One is black can play a gambit with D6. Okay, let's see what the main line is to capture the knight. Let's see what he did, then we'll go back. Okay, we're going to go back. Now, on D6, this gambit's a pawn, but black gets a lot of activity. And we'll see that in a moment. Now, there's really no better move than to come back here. Now, I tried this with colors reversed one time, and with a tempo in hand, and I got a good position out of it. Okay, so essentially, now it's black to move. I think the main line is bishop a6. But we can see, you know, this pawn is under some fire. Okay, if white goes to protect the pawn, this diagonal becomes very, wait, isn't drawing the arrow, very, very dangerous. Now, but there's an interesting thing here, though, and I have to, you know, this does give black some initiative, and probably very close to equality. But there's a very interesting move white can play to avoid all this, and that is just simply knight c2. Now here we're declining the pawn, and this can even transpose if in some positions. Say, for instance, if black plays a6, a good move for white is knight c2, and this in effect will transpose. Now I've had a number of games from this position. One of white's ideas is to play e4, b3. Now we have to be careful about the knight. You know, this diagonal can open up at a moment's notice, as I say. But I'm just kind of outlining a strategy. Then bring the knight to e3, and we got all kinds of pressure on the d5 square. You know, the white's on it 6 times, I believe, if he does this. Let's get rid of the arrows. Knight c2, you know, if he plays e4, well, I'm bringing him back, and knight e3, you know, we're going to have 1 pawn, 2 pawns, 2 knights is 4, a bishop, and a queen, all hitting d5. Now, in some cases, when I've played this, like say now d6, in some cases where I've played this this move, actually, let's deviate just a bit. I've had people take, and after this, they do this, and after this, white just has 2 pieces for the rook. This is no good at all for black. And I've had this happen twice, and I've won easily both times. Anyway, these are just some of the variations we can get into. Now the queen takes. Now black's best move here is d6. Let's see if he plays it. Yeah, he does. Now the main line for white now is to play queen d3. Now there's no pressing danger on this diagonal, at least for the moment. Okay, but it's a move that white will play simply to get the queen off that diagonal and be able to watch a number of squares. So queen d3 is the main line. That's what he does. Very good. Okay, now this is a very, very interesting position. How would you continue with black? And again, this is a position I've had many, many times with white. And one thing I've started running into it back in, well, I'm going to guess about 1982. I would often reach this position from playing 1 g3. I would just end up transposing into this. I had a number of people from this. Let me make sure I'm still broadcasting. Yep, good. Still broadcasting. Okay. I've had a number of people. They try the strategy. The bishop comes to the diagonal. The queen goes here. Then they play bishop here and trade the bishop. Now, I've never really been a fan of that strategy. Okay. Now, in some cases you do that, but and then contrary, to counter this, sometimes what people will do is they'll play the rook over, and so that when the bishop does come to h6, they can keep this on the board. And my experience says it's just let black spend the 3 moves it takes to set up this battery. You have to move the bishop, put the queen behind it, and then drop the bishop on h3. That's 3 moves. Then black takes and white must take back. And I've always had good luck with getting a really good game from this type of formation, because while black is busy doing those 3 moves, I get 3 moves of my own, and they're very often just moves like e4, b3, solidifying everything, and develop this bishop. Okay, and again, my results have been excellent, and I will often even put this pawn on f3 because to help kind of cover the light squares around my king side, because I don't know any longer have a bishop. And I've done well with that. So that's one thing that happens in practice, and now you've seen an idea. Just keep developing. Now, according to theory, what black needs to do is go through a series of moves. Let me see. I think it's a6, knight d7, knight c5. It'll give some protection here. Bishop d7, rook b8, and then finally b5. And now how many moves is that for black? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, I get 6 moves too, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then pick a move. Well, okay, I see a note right now, the B pawn, but hang, we're running a little behind on the broadcast. Let me peek at the broadcast. Maybe I can see it in real time. Well, yeah, in the position there. I'm just showing a strategy where that black will often employ. Okay, anyway, back to where we're at. But, if black successfully does the strategy which I've explained, he equalizes. And that's pretty much the only path to equalize. Now, a friend of mine, a FIDE master, Perry Youngworth, he liked to play bishop here in this position. And the reason was to close this diagonal down. Then he put the bishop here. And, probably even. Let's see what black does. He does play here. So, if I'm playing white, I'm going through with the moves I've pretty much shown you. At some point, I'm going to play e4. At some point, I'm going to play bishop g5. At some point, I'm going to play b3. At some point, I'm going to bring these rooks over. And let's see what white does. Okay, I guess he's targeting this square. I usually don't put this here, and there's a reason. Black could play knight g4 here. Okay, and if I play bishop d4, I'm getting rid of a bishop, which is very good for white. See, white's going to be putting a lot of his pawns on light squares. So you want this bishop, dark squared bishop on the board to maneuver around those pawns. So I think knight g4 is a good move for black. And then black even has a threat. Knight e5 could be a nuisance. Let's see what black does. Okay. Let's look at this move. Okay, what's white going to do? Well, we don't know. Now, the first thing I can say why I reject all this is I don't want to trade the dark squared bishop. I want that dark squared bishop on the board. My experience with this opening tells me you want that bishop on the board. But in addition to that, we also have to consider this move. Now, this move could be more of a pain for white. Okay, so let's back this up and see we're not able to protect this and save the queen, unless we have some discovery. Let's see, maybe we can get away with this. But now the idea is to do this. But let's see. Now white's okay here. But this is getting a little ugly for white. Black has other moves here. He can play bishop f5, and suddenly that queen doesn't look to me all that safe. We have, if we want to stay on the rank, to to indirectly protect this, we're just getting chased. And I think this is a little ugly for white. This queen is just it's just not well posted. And what's white's plan here? He's got a loose pawn down here, but for the moment, white's been keeping his queen safe. Okay, he didn't have time to, unless he had, maybe he had time to grab it after bishop f5. Let's see. But do you want to be grabbing this pawn? This could get dangerous. Let's see, I guess you're threatening to win the exchange, so rook here. Now, let's take here. There's some discoveries on this rook, but this guy would hang. In some respects, this reminds me of the Benko Gambit. Black's objective is to, black has a pawn on c5. Black's objective is to win the two white queenside pawns and win with his 6 against 5 pawn advantage on the other side of the board. Here we want to win these 2 pawns. They are weak. They're isolated. If black wins those pawns, he's got 5 against 4. I mean, the winning chances are black's only. I mean, why would white want to go into a line where even though he's a pawn up, he has to play for a long time with some bad pawns? I mean, it's not enviable. It's a tough way to grind the point. Okay, now Magnus Carlsen could sit there and do it, right? How many of us are Magnus Carlsen? Only Magnus is, and about 6 to 10 other of the top active grandmasters. They all play each other. Look at the Singfield Cup and stuff like that. Anand, Aronian, Caruana, Nakamura, Karyakin. Who am I missing? MVL. Anyway, let's back this up. See what happened. Okay, so rook b8. He wants to advance the b pawn, so while this diagonal opens up, this is necessary. So this is a move I talked about that black does in this one strategy. So maybe black will still set that up. I don't know. So now here, I think we hate to have to make a move like this, but this is smart because this was a good move for black, and black missed it. Okay, so this makes 0 sense to a degree. The long-term goal is to play b5, so we don't want to spend a tempo with b6 and then play b5 later. So but to counter that, we could argue that what black is trying to do is set up what we call the hedgehog defense. This pawn may even go here, although that's a little risky with the weakness here. But if I'm black, I'll follow my rule. If you're not sure what to do, develop a piece. So let's do what I was talking about. We got to transfer the knight before we play bishop d7, but I don't know. Here might play rook d1. See, this prohibits this move because we have a big whoops here. Okay, can you say whoops? See, we got the pin. So that's one of the reasons why I think it's important to bring the knight here right away. Let's back that up. See, if you bring the knight here right away, usually white doesn't play bishop e3, but let's see when he did play bishop e3. See, now if you put the knight here now, I guess we can do this, and once again we can't play knight c5 because of the defensive pin on the d6 pawn. Okay, let's go forward a little bit. But, not the kind of move either side wants to play. Now here, I don't think this is the right, if this is the plan, I don't think this is the right idea to trade off the dark squared bishop. If anything, I want to trade off the light squared bishop. And now here, it looks like black is playing this move to answer this with this. But black would do well by taking. Black is fine here. Okay, he's gotten rid of white's better bishop. White's going to be putting pawns on light squares, and or at least he should. So, okay, so rook here, maybe planning this. Whoops, I can't draw a line straight. Go here. Okay, tempo. So here's a case where we want to be able to push the pawn up here, and we can't. So we come over there, and that's the whole wrong idea. Black doesn't have enough stuff to attack on the king side. Black should be, black could do some other things here. He could play queen d7. That creates a threat. Okay, and if g4, we can back up and create another threat. Okay, if, whoops, let's see, sorry, queen d7. If king h2, maybe we can decide this rook doesn't belong here. Let's just put him over here. Other possibilities here. So the game is even. Okay, so that's a move I would play at some point. Now he goes there, so we got to watch this. So will white play h4? That, in a way, makes sense. So he's going to go that way. Well, h4, if he comes down here, so what? This is what white wants. Now, maybe white could play bishop g5, or maybe knight d5, and let black take to his heart's content. Okay, so king here's fine. And black decides to start copying white again. Okay, well, game is even. Okay, get rid of this and get a nice square for the knight. He didn't want that. He gives the square anyway. Oh, okay. So white's got a slight space advantage. Black is undeveloping his pieces. And now it's necessary to take this way. Although we could take this way and increase the scope of this bishop. I had a correspondence game back in the 90s against a FIDE master. Game ended up in a draw. But he gave up the bishop pair on d5, and I ended up, my d-pawn blockaded my bishop. I couldn't, and then he was able to put his pawns on dark squares, and I had no entry squares for my king to penetrate in his position, so the game ended in a draw. But the game still looks about even. Okay, so this does provide an extra square for the bishop, so in a way I am a fan of this capture. For the reasons I just explained, I couldn't do anything with the light squared bishop when I had a pawn on e4. Okay. So maybe this explains why black wanted to play here. He does want to trade the dark squared bishop. So, well, game seems even. We have a potential target down here, but nothing black holds. Okay. I'm not a fan of that move because of the weakness created here. I'm not a fan of that at all. Let's see what white did, and I'll give some ideas. Let's see. Well, we have to take care of the bishop. Okay, so this makes sense. How to take back? You have to take back with the knight, obviously. So now, suddenly we have this weakness. How do we take advantage of that? Well, I would say, well, let's immediately, you might think, let's get a bishop there. Well, maybe not a bad idea, but maybe not that easy. If we play h4, in order to put the bishop here, this knight hops into g4, and then we have to kick it out with e3, and then maybe this works. But the natural move, I think, is to play rook e6, and I had a defended a game once against a master where I ended up having to make this hole on e6, and he just tripled up, and I was suffocated. So rook e6, let's see if he does that. Well, no, we have this hole. Let's use it. Come on, ND. All right, rook e6. Now, how is black going to get rid of that bishop? I'm sorry. I'm so dyslexic. How's he going to get rid of that rook? Well, the only way I see is attack it with the knight. Well, we need 2 moves to do that. Well, white gets 2 moves. Okay. Let's double the rooks. And now he comes back. Now, unless we want to give up the exchange, we need to move the rook, right? We don't have a sacrifice here because we don't have enough. If the queen was here, we could play rook takes f6, right? And we steal the rook down there, ending up a pawn ahead. But, we'll just back up. Now we'll back up. You know what? And, now, we have a potential target here. We might put this bishop relocated on this diagonal, where it attacks g6, but also it pins this pawn. It can't advance. It can't take defensively. Maybe white can work on those pawns of blacks. Meanwhile, now the other alternative for that knight I didn't give would be to come here, but I don't know. That doesn't smell right. It traps the rook in, but so what? And we still have f4 to chase it out. Okay, but rook e2 is totally playable, but I like rook e6 a little better. But now we definitely need to take en passant. So this is a case of where this was warranted. A rook e6 was warranted. But black accepts a weakness here, and here it is. So now the question is, we can play a bishop d5. I mean, that's a move that stares out and is most likely going to be played this move or next. Doesn't mean it will be, but I said it's most likely. But which one do we want to do? If we want to take on e6 first, or we want to put the bishop on d5 first? Well, we may not even want to put the bishop on d5. I'm looking at trading rooks on e6, putting the rook on. Then put the rook on e1, chase the queen out, and then put the white queen on the e file and have a battery. Yes, I know this is the target, but on d6, but white seems to have some good prospects by controlling the e file, and the d6 pawn remains weak. Let's see what he did. So again, I'm looking at this move. Well, this move just almost seems to be begging to be played. Okay, he played the right move in my mind. And now, do we need to go forward with this? No, because otherwise black will challenge the file. So we need to put the queen on the e file. Perfect. Okay. So, ND, you are doing great. So white has all the winning chances here. Is this a theoretical win for white? That's a very good question. I guess Magnus Carlsen beats anybody in the world with this, huh? Maybe. Does Magnus hold black against anybody in the world? Well, that's what we're going to try to at least evaluate. We have one for sure weakness, but I think most of black's pawns are weak here too. Okay, and for what it's worth, black has 3 pawn islands, white has 2. And so white controls the D file. I'm sorry, the E file. I'm so dyslexic. Oh man. The only way black can challenge this E file is to get the rook here. But the rook needs some support. That means either the king has to come over here to help, or the knight has to come over to help. Now, how do you get that knight to g7? Well, it's easy. Knight f5, knight g7, then rook e8. But that gives white 3 moves too, so let's see what happens. Well, he didn't go the way I wanted, but again, that looks natural, but maybe, this move threatens the queen. Doesn't necessarily mean they'll take queens and activate that rook, but with black has to take care of his queen. Either has to protect it, move it, or trade it. Okay, but bishop d5 is certainly playable. And now let's see. Takes, check.
Check.
Yeah, I was looking at this and go for the endgame win. Now queen e7. Okay, he's trying to penetrate here, but what? Let's see. Let's do this a little differently. I don't know. We could play the bishop here. Could have played the bishop there last move. Let's back this up. This is, to me, this is an interesting move. This, well, why is it backing out? Oh my God. Okay, let's see. I think I've lost connection to ICC. No, I have connection to ICC. Just something seems odd here. I can't put my finger on it because the way the position jumped. Okay, so he played here. What if we play here? This creates the threat of queen takes. So, you know, black has to be paying attention. You know, he might say, oh, I can pin that bishop and I'm threatening to win it. Well, yeah, but you're also losing a pawn.
Check.
You're actually losing 2 pawns. You'd be lucky if you don't lose your king.
Check.
You know, this doesn't look good for black dropping 2 pawns. But I'm looking, you know, I'm trying to, I want to try to find a way to get into a rook and pawn ending. Now, I guess what I was seeing was takes. If you take with the rook, you can throw the queen check in. But he took with the king. So, what if we do this move? I mean, just what if? What's black going to do? We don't know. Well, if he comes over here to guard his queen, he's just dropping a pawn for nothing. Okay? If he comes here, now we can take. And black is getting ready to try to get rid of his isolated pawn, but he has to keep this rook out of e6 first. And it is white's turn.
Check.
You know, this could get a little ugly for black. But, you know, if you're going to be down a pawn in an endgame, you want it to be a rook and pawn ending. Okay? So, maybe d5. You know, I don't know, you know, white has all the winning chances. I wouldn't want to play black, even though there are some drawing chances. Okay, let's see what he did. We have to watch out for this, which may or may not be a good idea. He's also attacking that, which I didn't notice.
Check.
Now he goes there. Now he's piling up on that. It looks like the game is going to end on a draw by repetition. Okay, I disagree with that. White's got to play on here. Let's see. Let me back on before there's a repetition. Okay, let's just go ahead and play this.
Check.
Now, you know, maybe black can hold this. But if black holds this, I mean, wasn't the way white did it a draw anyway? You know, there's no guarantee black's going to draw this. Now, I don't know what, very, very tricky and take a long time to evaluate. Anyway, now this wasn't forced. Okay, so, whoops.
Check.
You can also go this way, but, you know, we still have, you know, there's still a weakness here. And, you know, if we want, we can just start bringing the king over. Nobody tries to do that. You know, I mean, this is in white's favor. You know, white could play on instead of just taking a draw by repetition. Okay, I'm going to move on to another game here in a moment.